It was an ordinary morning in the quiet town of Brooksville. The sun was rising, casting soft rays through the misty air, and the streets were still, save for the occasional car passing by. For most people, this was just another typical Saturday, but for Anna, the dishwasher at the local community center, it was another day like any other, simple, predictable, and routine. As she scrubbed away the remnants of last night's dinner plates in the industrial kitchen, she couldn't help but think how little ever changed in her life. She'd worked at the community center for over 5 years, living a life that was about as uneventful as it gets. Anna had never minded the quiet. It was a peaceful existence, one where she didn't have to deal with the hustle and bustle of the larger world outside her small town. She was a woman in her late 30s, with shoulder-length brown hair that she kept tied back in a practical ponytail and a face that had known its fair share of hard work. There were no remarkable features about her, just the simple, grounded look of someone who had settled into their own rhythm. Her days revolved around scrubbing dishes, making sure everything was spotless, and keeping the kitchen in order for whichever community event was being hosted that week. Her routine had been steady for so long that she could have done it with her eyes closed. Anna was content, if not entirely fulfilled. She often thought about what her life might have looked like had she made different choices, if she had pursued her dreams of traveling, if she had moved to a bigger city, if she had taken chances like the others who had left Brooksville. But as time passed, those thoughts became more like fleeting fantasies, idle dreams she allowed herself in rare moments of silence. The community center itself was a modest building, an old structure that had seen better days. The walls were lined with pictures of local events and celebrations, and the kitchen was equipped with the kind of industrial appliances one might expect in a place meant for communal gatherings. It wasn't glamorous, but it was functional, and it was here that Anna had built her life. She had become a part of the fabric of the town, someone whose presence was barely noticed but always expected. The town itself was small enough that everyone knew everyone else's business, yet large enough that you could go about your day without feeling constantly observed. There was a comforting anonymity in it, and Anna had come to cherish that. As she worked in the kitchen, her mind wandered to the birthday party that would take place later that afternoon. It was for a young girl named Lily, the daughter of a family that had recently moved into town. Anna hadn't had the chance to meet them yet, but she knew their names from the town's whispers. The Johnsons were new, and like all newcomers to Brooksville, they were the subject of mild curiosity. People spoke about them in hushed tones, wondering what had brought them here, what their story was. Anna didn't pay much attention to the gossip, but she knew she would be working at the birthday party as part of her duties. It would be another event like all the others, children running around, parents chatting, and Anna silently working in the background, making sure the dishes were clean and the kitchen ran smoothly. Around noon, as Anna prepared the trays for the afternoon, she was interrupted by a voice calling her name from the doorway. She turned to see Sarah, the event coordinator at the community center, standing there with a warm smile. Sarah was a few years younger than Anna, bright-eyed and full of energy, always running from one task to the next. She was a whirlwind, organizing events, making sure everything went according to plan. "Hey, Anna. Got a second?" Sarah called, wiping her hands on a towel. Anna nodded, wiping her hands on her apron and stepping out from behind the counter. "What's up?" "We've got a little problem," Sarah said, her tone slightly urgent. "The Johnson family's party is going to need extra help with serving and cleaning up. Do you mind pitching in?" Anna frowned slightly. "I thought I was just doing the dishes." "Well, they've got a big guest list, and I can't be everywhere at once. Could you help with a few more things?" "It'll be fine, you'll see," Sarah insisted. She had a way of making everything sound like an easy favor, no big deal. Anna hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Sure, I'll help out." Sarah grinned. "Thanks. You're a lifesaver." With that, Sarah quickly dashed off, leaving Anna alone in the kitchen again. The feeling of anticipation lingered in the air as Anna went back to her work, preparing the trays for the party. The thought of working in such a large crowd wasn't her idea of a good time, but it wasn't as though she had any other plans. Plus, helping out the Johnsons might be a good way to introduce herself to the new family. She knew everyone in town, and it had been a while since she had made any new connections. A part of her felt a little stir of curiosity. What were the Johnsons like? What brought them to this small, quiet town? As the party started that afternoon, Anna was deep in her duties, moving swiftly between the kitchen and the main hall, making sure the plates were full and the glasses were clean. She wasn't one to engage in conversation much, but she noticed the other servers bustling around, making small talk with the guests. The children were running around in the backyard, their laughter echoing through the open windows, while the parents stood chatting inside. It wasn't much different from any other party, except for the air of excitement that seemed to hang around this one. The Johnsons had been newcomers to Brooksville for only a few weeks, but already there was something special about their daughter, Lily. She had a kind smile, a gentle laugh, and a way of drawing people in with her warmth. Anna found herself glancing over at the little girl several times as she moved around, noting how Lily's golden curls bounced as she laughed with her friends. There was something about her that seemed oddly familiar to Anna. It wasn't that they looked alike, at least not at first glance. But there was an intangible connection Anna couldn't quite place. Something about the way Lily carried herself, the way she laughed with her friends, made Anna feel like she had known her forever. It was as if a fog had settled in Anna's mind, and it wasn't until she was clearing a table in the corner that she saw the girl up close. Her heart skipped a beat. Lily was laughing with another child, but when her eyes met Anna's, something happened. It was a strange sensation, like a jolt of recognition, and Anna's breath caught in her throat. The girl's face, her expression, even the way she held her head, was eerily familiar. Anna blinked a few times, trying to shake the feeling off. She couldn't place it. The odd sensation stayed with her throughout the afternoon, and as the party drew to a close, Anna found herself standing in the corner, watching Lily with growing intrigue. She couldn't quite explain why, but there was something about the girl that struck a chord deep inside her. It was as if Anna had seen her before, maybe in another life or another time. She didn't know how to make sense of it, but the more she watched, the more she realized that there was something more to this girl than met the eye. Something that was too familiar. Just as the party was winding down and the last of the guests were leaving, Anna caught a glimpse of Lily's mother, Sarah, as she ushered her daughter to the door. Anna hesitated, wondering if she should say something, but her feet were frozen in place. She didn't know why, but the connection between Lily and herself felt too strange to put into words. As the final few guests departed, Anna remained behind, silently cleaning up the last of the dishes, still lost in thought. The mystery of the day hung heavy in her mind, leaving her with one unshakable question: why did Lily seem so familiar? Little did Anna know, this seemingly ordinary day would soon become the catalyst for a life-altering chain of events. What started as a routine birthday party would soon unravel a story of family, secrets, and an unexpected reunion that no one could have foreseen. And all of it would begin with the shocking realization that Anna was about to discover something that would change her life forever. The next few days after the birthday party passed in a blur of quiet contemplation for Anna. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something significant about the encounter with Lily. At first, she chalked it up to the excitement of the party, the bustle of children and adults, the unfamiliarity of new faces in town. But as the hours passed and the more she thought about it, the more the sense of familiarity gnawed at her. Anna had worked in Brooksville long enough to know that people came and went, but there was something about Lily and her family that was different, something that felt personal, as if fate had somehow dropped them into Anna's life without warning. She couldn't stop replaying the moment when her eyes had met Lily's. The way the little girl had laughed, so carefree and happy, had sent a ripple of recognition through her chest. Anna had never been one to believe in coincidences, and she wasn't the type to get easily carried away by emotions. But this was different. There was a connection, a pull that she couldn't explain. It was as if she was looking into the face of someone she had known for years, someone who belonged in her life, even though they had just met. Anna's curiosity began to grow, and each day she found herself thinking about the Johnsons more and more. She had never been one to pry into other people's lives, especially not the lives of newcomers to the town. But there was something about this family, something that made Anna wonder whether they were truly as new to Brooksville as they appeared. She started paying closer attention to the Johnsons whenever she crossed paths with them in town. Mrs. Johnson, Lily's mother, was a pleasant woman, though there was a certain sadness in her eyes, a distant quality that Anna couldn't quite place. Her husband, Frank, was quiet and reserved, preferring to keep to himself. They had only been in town for a couple of months, but the whispers about them were already circulating. Some of the town's older residents had spoken about the family with a mixture of curiosity and speculation, but no one seemed to know much about their past. The Johnsons were a mystery, and for some reason, that intrigued Anna. One afternoon, as she was walking home from work, Anna noticed Mrs. Johnson sitting on the porch of their new house, a house that was tucked away on a quiet street not far from the center of town. The house was modest, but it was clear that the Johnsons had put a lot of effort into making it feel like home. There were fresh flowers planted along the walkway, a small wooden bench on the porch where Mrs. Johnson liked to sit and read, and the kind of welcoming warmth that drew people in. Anna wasn't sure why she did it, but on a whim, she walked up the driveway and knocked on the door. Mrs. Johnson answered with a smile, though there was a hint of surprise in her eyes. "Oh, hello. How can I help you?" she asked, as though she didn't expect anyone from town to stop by. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything," Anna said, her voice tentative. "I just wanted to say hello, introduce myself properly. I know we haven't really had a chance to talk much since the party." Mrs. Johnson's smile softened, and she stepped aside to let Anna in. "It's no trouble at all. We've been so busy unpacking and settling in. I'm Susan, by the way. I'm glad you stopped by." The two women sat on the porch together, sipping iced tea as the warm afternoon sun bathed them in golden light. They talked about the usual small-town topics, how Anna had lived in Brooksville her whole life, how Susan and her family had decided to move to the town for a fresh start. There was nothing particularly out of the ordinary about their conversation. But as they talked, Anna's mind kept drifting to the image of Lily, and she found herself struggling to keep the conversation on track. "So, how's Lily settling in?" Anna asked, her voice a little uncertain. "She's adjusting well," Susan replied. "She's made some friends already, and she loves the school. It's been a big change for her, but she's handling it better than I expected." Anna nodded, but her eyes wandered toward the small garden in the backyard. The shadows from the trees stretched long across the lawn, and for a moment, the air between them grew thick with unspoken thoughts. She couldn't bring herself to ask the question that had been consuming her mind: what if Lily wasn't just a stranger in her life? What if there was something more to this connection, something deeper than just a coincidence? "What about you?" Susan asked, breaking the silence. "How long have you worked at the community center?" "5 years, Anna replied, her gaze snapping back to Susan. "It's a good job. I like it. Keeps me busy." "That's good," Susan said with a nod. "It must be nice to have a routine like that." Anna's thoughts were a million miles away. She found herself wondering whether she should ask Susan about the family's past, about why they had moved to Brooksville in the first place, but the words wouldn't come. She wasn't the type to pry, and besides, it wasn't any of her business. Still, something about Susan's guarded demeanor made her feel like there was more to their story than met the eye. "I should get going," Anna said, standing up. "It was nice talking to you, Susan." "Of course, I enjoyed it as well," Susan replied, standing up as well. "Please, feel free to stop by any time. Lily would love to see you again." As Anna walked back down the driveway, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Susan seemed like a kind woman, but there was an underlying tension in her eyes that spoke of hidden things she wasn't ready to share. Anna felt a spark of curiosity flare inside her again. She needed to know more. There was something about Lily and Susan that called to her, something in the way they interacted, something unspoken. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to come together, and though Anna didn't fully understand it yet, she knew one thing for sure: her connection to the Johnson family was far from coincidental. Over the next few days, Anna's obsession with the Johnsons deepened. She found herself walking by their house on the pretense of going to the store, just so she could catch a glimpse of Lily. There was something magnetic about the little girl, something that drew Anna in like a moth to a flame. She would watch her playing in the yard or running down the street with her friends, her golden hair bouncing in the breeze, her laughter ringing out like music. It wasn't just the physical resemblance between Anna and Lily that haunted her, it was the feeling that, in some inexplicable way, they were connected. It wasn't long before Anna made another decision that would change everything. One evening, after a long day of work at the community center, she found herself standing in front of the Johnsons' house again, her heart racing with anticipation. She had come to a realization that she could no longer ignore. She had to know the truth. What was it about Lily that felt so familiar? What was it that had drawn her in, day after day? Taking a deep breath, Anna knocked on the door once more. This time, her heart was pounding in her chest. She had to ask the question that had been eating away at her for days. She had to know. When Susan opened the door, Anna barely managed to speak. "Susan. I have to ask you something. It's important." Susan's face softened, concern creeping into her expression. "Of course, Anna. What's going on? Is there any chance at all that Lily and I might be related?" Anna asked, her voice barely a whisper. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then, slowly, Susan's face drained of color. Susan stood frozen at the door, her expression unreadable. The world around Anna seemed to slow down, the air thick with an overwhelming sense of anticipation. She had expected a reaction, maybe a surprise, a laugh, or even a puzzled expression, but not this. Susan's face remained pale, her eyes wide, as if she had been struck by a sudden bolt of lightning. For a long moment, the two women just stared at each other, the weight of the question hanging heavily between them. Finally, Susan spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how you could know that." Her tone was shaky, her words carrying a tremor of something much deeper. She glanced over her shoulder as if expecting someone to be listening, but the house was still, the only sound the faint rustling of the wind through the trees. "Please, come inside." Anna hesitated for only a moment before stepping over the threshold, her heart pounding in her chest. She had asked the question without fully understanding what it meant, but now that it had been spoken, she could sense that this was no ordinary situation. This wasn't just a question of curiosity, it was a question that was unraveling something far more complicated and unknown. Susan led Anna into the living room, her movements stiff, as though every step was weighed down by the gravity of the conversation. Once they were seated, Susan took a long breath, her hands trembling as she folded them in her lap. She looked at Anna with a mixture of caution and something else, something that felt like regret. "I didn't want you to find out this way," she said, her voice still low. "But I suppose there's no avoiding it now." Anna felt a surge of impatience. Her mind raced, her heart thundering as the pieces of the puzzle she had been trying to solve began to shift into place. "Find out what? What do you mean? I don't understand." Susan closed her eyes for a moment, as if bracing herself for something she had been keeping buried for far too long. When she opened them again, there was a new resolve in her gaze. "Lily isn't just my daughter. She's yours." The words hit Anna like a punch to the gut, and for a brief second, she couldn't process what Susan was saying. "What do you mean?" she repeated, though it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room, leaving only a suffocating silence in its place. Susan's hands clenched into fists, her knuckles white. "Lily is your daughter, Anna. She's your biological daughter. You were separated from her when she was a baby." Her voice broke on the last few words, as if the act of saying them out loud made them somehow more real, more painful. Anna's breath caught in her throat. The world tilted sideways, and she felt her mind whirl in a haze of disbelief. This couldn't be true. She must have heard wrong. She had to have misunderstood. I don't understand," she managed to stammer, her voice thick with confusion. "I never had a daughter. I've never even," but the words faltered in her mouth as memories she had long buried began to resurface, memories of a time when she was much younger, much more naive. Susan's face softened, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I didn't want to tell you this," she said, her voice thick with sorrow. "I didn't want to bring up the past, but I don't think I can keep it from you anymore. I was there the day you gave her up. You were just a teenager, and you didn't have anyone to help you. You were scared, Anna. You didn't know what to do. And I was there. I promised you that I would take care of her, that I would love her as my own. But all these years, I've been living with the secret, knowing that you were out there, knowing that one day you might find out." Anna sat there in stunned silence, her mind trying desperately to make sense of the words Susan had just spoken. "But I don't remember. How could I forget something like that? Why didn't I know?" Her voice cracked with emotion, and she felt a tear slip down her cheek. Susan reached out, placing a hand on Anna's, her touch gentle but firm. "You were very young, Anna. You were told it was for the best, that it was better for you both. You were given an option, and you chose to let go, thinking it was the right decision. It wasn't easy, but you had no support. No one was there to help you through it." Her voice trembled as she spoke, as though she too had carried the weight of that moment for far too long. "I promised you I would keep her safe, and I did. But now she's grown up, and she's asking questions. And I can see it in her eyes, she's starting to remember something, even though she's never known the truth." Anna felt a rush of emotions flood through her. Shock. Anger. Pain. Confusion. She had lived her whole life without knowing that the daughter she had once given up was out there, living in this very town, growing up under someone else's care. And now, here she was, face to face with the truth. Her whole world felt turned upside down, and she didn't know how to process it. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, the words coming out in a whisper. "Why didn't you reach out to me sooner?" Susan's face crumpled, and for the first time, Anna saw the full weight of the regret and sorrow in her eyes. "I was afraid," Susan said quietly. "I was afraid that you wouldn't want to see her, that you wouldn't want to know. I didn't know how to tell you, and I thought it would be easier if I just kept it all hidden. I thought it would be safer for Lily, and for you." She paused, her breath shaky. "But I can't keep hiding it anymore. I can't keep this secret from you, Anna. Not when I see how much she looks like you. Not when I see the way you react when you're around her. It's clear to me now, she's your daughter. You need to know the truth." Anna's mind reeled as she tried to process the enormity of what Susan was saying. Everything she had known about herself, about her life, had just been shattered. The life she had lived up until this moment suddenly seemed like a dream, like it wasn't even her life at all. She had always wondered about the mysterious gaps in her past, the parts of herself that never quite made sense. But never in a million years had she imagined that the missing piece of her life was standing right in front of her, embodied in the form of a little girl who, by all accounts, should have been a stranger. She stood up abruptly, her legs unsteady beneath her. "I need to see her," Anna said, her voice thick with emotion. I need to see my daughter." Susan stood up too, reaching out to stop her, her hand gently resting on Anna's arm. "You have to be careful, Anna. Lily doesn't know. She doesn't know the truth yet. And I think it's better if we take this slowly. You have to be sure you're ready for this." But Anna was already walking toward the door, her mind racing. She didn't know how to make sense of the emotions swirling inside her, but one thing was clear: she had to see Lily. She had to look into the eyes of the daughter she had lost and see if the connection she felt was real. Susan hesitated for a moment before following Anna out the door. "Please, Anna. Just promise me you'll be careful. This isn't just about you. It's about Lily too." Anna didn't respond. All she could think about was the little girl she had unknowingly abandoned years ago, the girl who was now standing in front of her, waiting for the truth. And she was determined to find out what that truth meant for both of them. As Anna stepped out of Susan's house, her legs felt like lead, each step heavy with the weight of the truth she had just learned. Her thoughts swirled in a chaotic storm, each one demanding her attention, but none of them clear enough to help her make sense of what had just transpired. Her heart raced as she walked down the driveway, the cool evening air doing little to ease the fire burning in her chest. Lily. Her daughter. It didn't seem real, yet every part of her being screamed that it was. A child, her child, growing up right under her nose, living a life without her, unaware of the bond they shared. The pain of that realization threatened to overwhelm her, but she pushed it aside. There was something far more important now. She had to see Lily. Anna's mind flashed back to the party, the innocent way Lily had approached her, the laugh they had shared, the uncanny resemblance that had set Anna's heart racing. It had all been right there in front of her, yet she hadn't known. How could she not have known? How could she have missed the signs? The questions kept piling up, each one more urgent than the last. But as much as she wanted answers, she couldn't ignore the nagging sense of fear that gripped her heart. What would she even say to Lily? How could she explain something so enormous, so impossible to comprehend? The town was quieter now, the sun dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the street. Anna's mind was a whirlwind of questions, each one more desperate than the last. As she walked, she found herself moving instinctively toward the Johnsons' house, the pull too strong to ignore. The closer she got, the more her heart pounded, until she was standing at the edge of their front yard, staring at the familiar porch where she had spent so many hours with Susan. But this time, it felt different. This time, she wasn't just an outsider. This time, she was something more. Before she could think further, she heard a soft voice behind her. "Anna?" She turned to see Susan standing at the door, a worried expression on her face. "I thought you left," Susan said, stepping out onto the porch. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Anna hesitated for a moment, the words that had been building inside her finally finding their way to the surface. "I have to see her," Anna said, her voice firm, though her body trembled with emotion. "I can't leave here without seeing her, without knowing for sure." Susan's face softened, and she stepped closer. "I understand," she said quietly, her voice filled with empathy. "But you need to understand, Anna. Lily doesn't know. She doesn't know anything about this. She doesn't know you're her mother." "I know," Anna whispered, the lump in her throat growing. "But I can't go on pretending that I don't know her. I can't pretend that I don't see her every day, wondering if she's mine." Susan took a deep breath and nodded, her gaze softening. "I'll take you to her," she said finally. "But you need to promise me that you'll be careful. You need to promise me that you'll give her time. This is going to be a shock for her too." Anna nodded, the tears threatening to spill over once again. She hadn't been prepared for this, hadn't been prepared for the overwhelming wave of emotions that hit her all at once. But it was happening, whether she was ready or not. She had to face this. She had to face her daughter. Susan led Anna into the house, the familiar warmth of the place offering little comfort. They moved quietly through the hallway, past the living room where Anna had spent time with Susan just hours ago. It felt strange now, almost surreal, to be walking through the house knowing the truth. The deeper Anna got into the house, the more she realized that she was walking into unknown territory. She was stepping into a life that had existed without her. She was about to meet her daughter, a daughter she had lost and never thought she would find. They reached the kitchen, where the soft hum of a television could be heard in the background. Lily was sitting at the table, coloring in a book, completely unaware of the dramatic shift taking place in her life. Anna felt her heart swell with love and fear all at once. There was her daughter, sitting at the table, just like any other child. But this wasn't just any child. This was Anna's flesh and blood, the little girl who had once been her world, and now, after all these years, she was back. Susan stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. The little girl looked up, her eyes bright and curious. "Hey, sweetie," Susan said, her voice soft. "I want you to meet someone." Lily looked up at her mother with a puzzled expression. "Who?" Susan smiled, though her eyes were filled with unshed tears. "This is Anna," she said, her voice catching slightly. "She's someone very important." Lily looked at Anna with wide eyes, her small face registering surprise, but not yet understanding the magnitude of what was happening. "Hi," Lily said shyly, offering Anna a small smile. Anna's breath caught in her throat. It was all she could do not to break down right then and there. "Hi," she managed to say, her voice shaky. She couldn't find the words to express what she was feeling. There were so many things she wanted to say, so many questions she needed to ask, but she couldn't form a single sentence. Instead, she simply took a step closer and crouched down to meet Lily's gaze, the warmth of her daughter's presence overwhelming her. Lily tilted her head slightly, studying Anna with innocent curiosity. "Are you my aunt?" she asked, her voice light and uncertain. Anna's heart shattered at the question. How could she explain this to her? How could she tell this sweet, innocent little girl the truth that would turn her world upside down? I'm not your aunt, sweetheart," Anna said softly, her voice trembling. I'm your mother." The words hung in the air, and for a long moment, Lily said nothing. The quiet stretched between them, and Anna's heart pounded in her chest. She wasn't sure what she had expected, but she hadn't expected this silence. Lily blinked, her small brow furrowing as if she were trying to process the words. "My mom?" she asked slowly, as if testing the idea out. She looked up at Susan for reassurance, her young face filled with confusion. Susan's voice was gentle but firm. "Yes, honey. Anna is your mom. She's the one who gave birth to you. She's the one who had to let you go all those years ago." Lily looked back at Anna, her eyes searching hers. "But why didn't you take care of me?" The question hit Anna like a ton of bricks, and for a moment, she was speechless. How could she possibly explain the reasons behind her decisions all those years ago? How could she explain the circumstances that had led to her having to let go of her daughter? But as she looked into Lily's wide, innocent eyes, she knew that the answers didn't matter right now. The only thing that mattered was that she was here now. She was here to love her. To be her mother. "I'm sorry," Anna whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you. But I promise, I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere." Lily's expression softened, though there was still a hint of uncertainty in her eyes. "Okay," she said, as if accepting the words at face value. Anna reached out, gently pulling Lily into her arms. The little girl's warmth filled Anna's heart, and in that moment, all the years of separation, of pain, seemed to fade away. It wasn't the reunion she had dreamed of, but it was a start. And for the first time in years, Anna felt whole again. As they embraced, Susan watched quietly from the doorway, her heart heavy with the knowledge of how much had been lost, and how much could still be gained. The road ahead was uncertain, and the healing would take time. But in that moment, as Anna held her daughter in her arms for the first time, everything felt right. Everything felt possible. And for the first time in a long time, Anna allowed herself to believe that, no matter what had come before, the future still held hope. The days that followed were a blur of emotions for Anna. Each morning she woke with the weight of the past pressing down on her, a constant reminder that she had lost so many years. She had never thought about how much time she had missed out on until she was standing there with Lily, holding her hand for the first time, seeing the girl she never knew she had. But even in those moments, there was a mixture of joy and grief, a bittersweet combination of emotions that pulled her in every direction. The hurt of those lost years was still raw, but the promise of what could come next gave her the strength to keep going. The initial shock had worn off for Lily, though it had been replaced by confusion. She wasn't sure what it meant for her mother to suddenly appear after all this time. She had been raised by Susan, and in many ways, Susan was the only mother she had ever known. To suddenly hear that her real mother was standing before her, someone she had never met, was too much for her to fully process. There were times when she seemed to embrace the idea of having a mother, and then there were other times when she shrank back, unable to fully accept the change. Anna could understand the hesitation. After all, how could anyone, especially a child, understand a shift like this, one so fundamental that it shook everything they had ever known? It wasn't easy for Susan either. She had spent years raising Lily as her own, and now the woman who had once been a part of her life was back, wanting to be part of Lily's life too. There were moments when Susan looked at Anna with a mixture of guilt and sorrow, as if she was afraid of what might happen next. She had always known that one day, this truth might come to light, but she had never imagined it would be so difficult. She had been Lily's mother for all these years, and now she was being asked to step aside, to let Anna take her place. The love Susan had for Lily was undeniable, but the love she had for Anna, too, was complicated. There was a strange tension that hung in the air, one that Anna could feel every time she was around Susan, but it was never openly addressed. They had both sacrificed so much for the sake of Lily, and now, it seemed that both of them had to come to terms with the new reality that had been forced upon them. Despite the tension, Anna was determined to forge a relationship with Lily. Every chance she got, she would spend time with her, taking her to the park or reading her favorite books. At first, there were moments of awkwardness. Lily would look up at her with wide eyes, unsure of what to say, while Anna would search for the right words to bridge the gap between them. Sometimes, there would be long silences, both of them unsure of how to connect, but those moments, though difficult, were important. They were the building blocks of something new, something that could heal the wounds of the past and create a bond that would last a lifetime. One afternoon, after several weeks of tentative steps toward rebuilding their relationship, Anna and Lily went for a walk by the lake. It was a quiet day, the water calm and reflective, the trees casting long shadows over the path. As they walked, Lily started to talk, her voice soft but growing in confidence. "Do you think I'm like you?" she asked, glancing up at Anna. Anna felt a lump rise in her throat, a mixture of pride and heartache welling up inside her. "In many ways, you are," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You're kind, and you're brave, and you have such a beautiful heart." Lily smiled at the compliment, but the question remained in her eyes. "But how did you know? How did you know that I was yours?" Anna paused, taking a deep breath. This was a question she had been avoiding, one that still felt like a mystery to her. But now, it seemed that Lily needed to understand. She had to know that there was something more than just biology that made them connected. It wasn't just the blood they shared, it was the bond that had always been there, even when they were apart. Anna crouched down so she could meet Lily's eyes, her hands resting gently on the girl's shoulders. I knew, Anna said softly, because even when I didn't know you were out there, there was always something in my heart that felt like it was missing. When I saw you for the first time, something clicked. It wasn't just the way you looked, it was the way you made me feel. Like I was finally where I was meant to be. Her voice faltered as she spoke, the emotion too raw to keep inside. Lily seemed to absorb the words, her eyes reflecting a depth of understanding that Anna hadn't expected. For a brief moment, the world around them seemed to stop. It wasn't about the years that had been lost, the time that could never be reclaimed. It was about this moment, this connection they had finally found. It wasn't perfect, and it wouldn't always be easy, but it was real. And in that moment, that was all that mattered. As they continued walking, hand in hand, Anna realized that the road ahead would be anything but simple. There would be challenges, moments of doubt, and times when the weight of the past threatened to pull them apart. But there would also be love, growth, and the chance to build something new. Anna had spent years wondering if she would ever have the opportunity to be a mother, and now, she had that chance. Though it came with complications, it was a gift she would never take for granted. The days turned into weeks, and Anna continued to spend time with Lily. Slowly but surely, the girl began to warm to her, opening up in small ways. One evening, as they were sitting on the porch, Lily turned to Anna with a thoughtful expression on her face. "I think I'm starting to like you," she said, her voice tentative but honest. Anna smiled, her heart swelling with joy. "I like you too, sweetheart." Lily's smile grew wider, and in that moment, Anna knew that there was still hope. They had a long way to go, but they had started the journey together. And that was enough. But it wasn't just Anna and Lily who were affected by the revelation. The entire town began to take notice. Gossip spread like wildfire, and everyone seemed to have an opinion on the matter. Some were supportive, understanding that life was complicated and that the past was not always black and white. Others were more skeptical, questioning the motives behind Anna's sudden reappearance after all these years. Some even wondered what Susan's role would be in Lily's life now. Would she step aside completely, or would she continue to be the mother figure she had been for so long? At first, the questions were just whispers, but soon they turned into full-fledged conversations. Some people even began to speculate that Anna's return was motivated by something more than just wanting to be a mother to Lily. Perhaps there was a deeper, more personal reason behind it all. But Anna didn't let the gossip bother her. She couldn't. She had too much at stake now. The only thing that mattered was the relationship she was building with Lily, the bond they were slowly but surely forming. What the town thought didn't matter, not anymore. Weeks turned into months, and while the process of healing and rebuilding trust was slow, Anna felt a growing sense of hope. There were still moments of doubt, still times when Lily pulled away, still moments when the past threatened to swallow them whole. But there were also moments of connection, moments when Lily would laugh with Anna, or ask her about things she had never shared with anyone else. There were still obstacles, but they felt surmountable. The journey was just beginning, and Anna was determined to see it through, no matter what. As for Susan, she remained a constant presence in Lily's life, though the dynamic had shifted. There was no animosity between her and Anna, at least, not overtly, but there was a subtle tension that lingered in the air. Susan still loved Lily as her own, and she always would. But the reality was that Anna had returned to claim the role of mother, and it was something that Susan had to accept, even if it was painful. The love she had for Lily was deep and unshakable, but it was complicated. She had given so much of herself to raising Lily, and now she had to figure out how to share that love, to make room for Anna. But despite the challenges, despite the emotional roller coaster that came with the truth, something incredible was unfolding. Anna and Lily were building a relationship from the ground up, one day at a time. The pain of the past was still there, but with each passing day, they were learning how to move forward, together. And in that moment, Anna realized that even though the road was long, the journey had already begun. And that was enough for now. The next few months unfolded with a slow but steady transformation. Each day brought new challenges for Anna and Lily, but also small victories. Anna had learned to be patient, to respect Lily's need for time and space as she adjusted to the idea of having a biological mother after all these years. At first, the conversations were awkward and hesitant, with Anna unsure of how to navigate this strange new territory, and Lily unsure of how to accept her place in this new world. But slowly, they began to build trust, brick by brick. There were days when Anna would pick Lily up from school, and the silence in the car was palpable. It was as if neither of them knew what to say, or if there was anything left to say. But over time, those silences began to feel less uncomfortable. They shared moments of quiet understanding, small exchanges, like when Lily would point out something funny on the radio or tell Anna about her day, and Anna would listen, offering gentle encouragement. At times, Anna would find herself almost forgetting that they weren't a typical mother-daughter duo, that they weren't accustomed to each other's company. For brief moments, the bond they were forming felt natural, like they had always been together. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were still moments of resistance, especially when it came to discussing the past. Lily would occasionally retreat into herself when the conversation veered too close to the years that had been lost. She would pull away, not willing to confront the anger or sadness she might be feeling. Anna understood that. After all, Lily had lived a life with Susan, had called Susan her mother for so long, and now she was being asked to accept Anna as that figure. It was not something that could be rushed, and Anna knew that. But there were moments when the weight of it all threatened to crush her, moments when she doubted her decision to try and reclaim the role of mother in Lily's life. One evening, as they sat in the kitchen together, Anna watched Lily carefully as the young girl pushed her food around her plate. It had been a quiet evening, the kind where the world outside seemed to slow down, and the only sound in the house was the occasional clink of utensils. Anna had been trying to make a connection, to say something that would break the silence, but she wasn't sure how to. That was the thing about parenting, sometimes, the best thing you could do was just show up. Sometimes, no words were needed. But still, she couldn't shake the sense that she was always walking a fine line, always trying to navigate Lily's world, respecting her space while also trying to inch closer. Finally, Lily looked up from her plate, her expression unreadable. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you didn't have to leave?" Her voice was soft, and there was a vulnerability in it that Anna hadn't expected. Anna's breath caught in her throat. She had expected many questions from Lily, but this one felt like a punch to the gut. "Every day," Anna admitted, her voice trembling. "I think about it all the time. I think about the years we lost, and how I should have been there for you. I'm sorry, Lily. I'm so sorry." Lily's eyes softened as she reached across the table, her hand resting gently on Anna's. "It's not your fault," she said quietly. "I mean, it is, but it's not. I don't really understand what happened, but I know you didn't mean to leave me." Anna's heart swelled with both relief and sorrow. She had always feared this moment, the moment when Lily would have to confront the reality of what had been taken from her. But here, in this small gesture, Lily had shown a maturity beyond her years. She had already begun the process of forgiving, of accepting that things were complicated, but that they could still move forward. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. Anna squeezed Lily's hand, grateful for the understanding, for the opportunity to move past the past and toward something better. As time went on, Anna became more integrated into Lily's world. They went to the grocery store together, baked cookies on weekends, and spent countless hours talking about everything from school to Lily's growing collection of books. There were still moments of hesitation, moments when Lily would withdraw or become frustrated with the changes, but Anna was determined to be there through it all. She knew that building a relationship from the ground up wasn't easy, but she was committed. There were days when the strain of being a new mother to an older child, especially one with so much baggage, seemed overwhelming. But there was also a deep love, a fierce protectiveness that made everything worth it. Anna also noticed that Susan was beginning to find her own place in the new dynamic. At first, she had been hesitant to let go of her role as Lily's primary mother figure. But as time passed, Susan began to see that Lily's relationship with Anna was not a threat to the bond they shared. Susan had always been there for Lily, and she always would be. But now, she understood that Anna was also a part of the picture, a part of Lily's story that couldn't be ignored. They began to co-parent in their own way, finding a delicate balance between their roles. It wasn't always easy, and there were moments of tension, but they were learning to navigate it. It was clear that both women loved Lily deeply, and in that love, there was room for both of them. One afternoon, as they all sat together in the living room, the weight of everything seemed to shift. Lily was telling Anna about a new friend she had made at school, and Susan was sitting beside them, listening with a warm smile. There was a sense of peace in the room, a quiet understanding that had taken time to build but was finally there. It wasn't a perfect situation, there were still wounds to heal, and the road ahead was uncertain. But there was hope. And for the first time, Anna felt like she had finally found her place in the world again. The thought of the years that had been lost no longer consumed her. Yes, they had been stolen, and yes, they could never be replaced. But she had made a choice to be present now, to be the mother Lily deserved. And as she looked at the little girl who had once been a stranger and now was becoming her daughter, Anna realized that there was a kind of beauty in the way their lives had intertwined. She had missed so much, but she was here now. She was a part of Lily's life, and she wasn't going anywhere. Over the next year, things slowly began to settle into a new rhythm. Lily had her ups and downs, as expected for a child who had been thrust into such a complicated reality, but she was starting to thrive. She had become more open, more willing to talk about her feelings, and Anna had learned to listen. She had learned that being a mother wasn't just about providing, but about being there, about showing up when it was hard, when it was awkward, and when it felt like everything was falling apart. For the first time in her life, Anna felt like she was doing something right. She was mothering her child, not perfectly, but with all the love and dedication she had. The bond between her and Lily wasn't like the ones Anna had seen in movies, or the relationships that had come easily to other mothers. It was fragile, but it was real. And that was all Anna needed. As she watched Lily run through the yard one warm summer evening, her laughter ringing out like a sweet melody, Anna couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. The road had been long, and there were still challenges ahead, but she was no longer afraid of them. She had learned that even in the face of uncertainty, there was hope, and sometimes, that was all that mattered. The journey wasn't over, it was only just beginning. But Anna was ready. She was ready to be the mother Lily needed. She was ready to face whatever came next. And as the sun set on that quiet evening, Anna knew one thing for sure, she was exactly where she was meant to be.